Hey
Good
everyone.
morning. Good
I get to
afternoon.
I get to actually host this, and Kat gets to do most of the talking. So I was going to kick it off today. Even though it's funny because this is obviously my passion. I know you guys, all of you that have been around me for any length of time or seen me, and of course Kat, you know that we live in that world of athletics in every part of it, and from youth all the way to pros and high school, college, everything in between. But Kat, Kat being our not just our, obviously lead dietitian and everything else, but also a sports dietitian and a mom. So I thought it'd be perfect for her to kind of lead this thing all the way around, because we'll definitely be recording it, so you can have this for all your clients and all the parents. I would love right now to call every single parent in the United States and say, get on this webinar, because this isn't about, youth athletes. This is about every single growing child and the nutrition that they need. It's going to evolve into the youth athletes. That's why you see it on the title. It's going to evolve into that when you get into meal timing and some of these things. But it's something that every child needs from the time they're in the womb to the time, all the way through adulthood. So anyway, you're going to see how this all comes together. Now, I also want to preface this as well. One is that this is a long, big deck. It's like 60 slides. But we're going to go very quick through it. I'll tell you why, because it's a download for you. For all you fitness professionals, all you practitioners out there, this is a download for you. So it's a full book that has all the numbers you need, everything you want to understand youth nutrition, okay? And especially for for those of you that work with youth athletes. So we'll have everything in one place. So there's a bunch of slides we'll just go over very quickly. We're just going to go, okay, here's where you have this, here's where you have this. So we can keep this thing somewhere inside 45 minutes, so we can open it up to questions for as long as you want, because that's the more important part of this, is the questions. And then we can go all the way until I got a hard stop around 12:20, or that's Pacific Standard Time. All right. So anyway, we're going to kick out Kat. You guys all know who Kat is. Obviously, she's not just our lead dietitian, but again a sports dietitian as well. She's worked with her son is now in the NBA. And she worked with the mini NBA camps, all the future NBA players, put those programs together for them as well. So you're listening to the right person. All right. So Kat, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you, Neal. I appreciate that. And I didn't get to introduce you, just in case anyone here is new to our master classes. Of course, Neal Spruce, founder and CEO, our fearless leader. You're going to learn a little bit more about him and some of his background, maybe stuff you didn't know about Neal as we go along. So just housekeeping rules in general. You guys are in listen-only mode. You know the deal. We capture a recording. We post it within a couple business days. It's probably going to be up to later today. You'll get a download of the handouts. And if you have questions, the way you would enter the questions is in the questions little area in the GoToWebinar panel. You just simply click on the little arrow. It'll open up and you can ask a question as you think of them throughout the webinar. And then, as Neal pointed out, 45 minutes later, I'm going to try to get through to that quickly. We're going to go through and field all of your questions. And then if you didn't know, Neal and I do for every Friday, except for we have masterclass, Instagram Live. So you can come on Instagram Live at 1 o'clock Pacific and join us there. And it's a free for all, right, Neal? We just answer whatever you want. By then, Neal's having exactly. Okay, so let us get started. Neal, this is something that has always stuck in my head when you said it for the very first time. Nutrition can make a good athlete great and a great athlete better, right?
Yeah.
So
for sure.
So Neal's oldest son, as you guys may or may not know, Nelson Spruce, he's a pro football player. He broke all the records at the University of Colorado in the Power 5 conference, Pac-12. And then he had an amazing, rookie year with the Los Angeles Rams, and then with the XFL Wildcats. So that's his oldest son. And then his younger son, as you can see, is Studley as well. And that's Zane, and he's an international BJJ competitor. He trains under this prestigious, BJJ artist in the world, and has competed, as you can see, around the globe. So in addition to this, Neal's also, how long did you coach youth football, Neal? How many years?
Yeah, for almost 10 years, all the way through the Pop Warner. So I worked
And
with 26 kids at a time. Yeah.
and as you can imagine, nutrition was a huge focus, right?
I gave every single parent, all 26 parents got a menu. Here's how you feed your kids, and here's what they need to take before they get to practice and after practice so they recover faster.
And
by the way, we
those
won
are
more
some
Super
happy
Bowls
kids.
than anybody in Pop Warner.
Absolutely. Okay, so as you can see as a parent, Neal's got tons of experience with raising pro athletes, coaching pro athletes at different levels. And then as he pointed out, my son is a pro basketball player. He also played in the Pac-12 with the Hawks, and then most recently with the OKC Development Organization. And then my daughter's a high school athlete. So she's, 15 in this picture, and she's already got some college interest. So I'm hoping to go 2 for 2 without having to pay for college.
Without having to pay for college, exactly.
Exactly. So there, man. And then, as Neal pointed out, I also did some work with the NBA athletes, various high schools, and also one-on-one with NBA athletes. So that's my background. That's Neal's background. We have a lot to share, not just from a scientific and professional perspective, but from personal, practical, which I think sometimes is what, you guys are most interested in, especially you parents out there, right? So we've got a lot to cover, a lot of content to cover. And once again, this will be downloaded for you guys on our website within a couple of days. So, kids can relate to these cars, these luxury cars, right? Every kid I know has their dream car. So when we talk to youth about nutrition, it's a really good idea to use analogies that on their level, things that they're interested in, as opposed to preaching at them, right? And so I typically go, okay, what kind of car do you like? What's your favorite car? Type thing. They might say a Bugatti, or they might say a Bentley, or whatever. Well, what kind of fuel are you going to give these kind of cars the best? Absolutely. So training hard and eating poorly is like putting bad gas in your car, low grade fuel. Would you do that? So why would you do that to your body, right? And so Neal describes this sort of catabolic, anabolic process, right, very succinctly. Neal, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, so exercise is, what people don't realize, exercise is a stage setter, nothing more than that. It just all it does is tear down muscle. I always ask people, does exercise build muscle? And everybody thinks yes. No, it doesn't. It does exactly the opposite. It tears it down. And if you don't eat, it keeps tearing it down. And if you don't eat again, it keeps tearing it down until you're gone. So, but it does set the stage for what we want to happen. It does, all the things as we have listed here on the left, it stresses the tissues, but it creates what we want to happen next. And boom, nutrition makes that happen, makes what we want to happen next. So not just refueling it for the next workout, but the growth and development. That all comes from what goes in your body. And so at the end of the day, that's how you build muscle, connective tissue, everything else, all the way around. So if you don't bring in everything that your exercise created, so your exercise created all this need for nutrition. And if you put back only half of what the body can use, you literally get half the result. So it's all about putting back exactly as much as the body can use that is set up by your nutrition. So nutrition sets the stage. Exercise sets the stage. Nutrition makes the movie. You get bad nutrition, you get a bad movie. Same nutrition, if you don't evolve with your workouts, with your nutrition, you get the same movie or a plateau. You just don't go any further. That's how important nutrition is to the whole case.
Okay, so there's 6 classes of essential nutrients that nourish the body, right? We have the macros. You guys hear macros all the time, counting macros. So those are the carbs, proteins, fat. You need those in large amounts. Then you have micros, right? Also essential to the body, the vitamins and minerals. And of course, the most important one is water. And so what do we know about these essential nutrients? Basically, your body does not. Hold on. I'm sorry. That always happens. 1 second. Your body does not make essential nutrients. So you must get them from an outside source, from the diet. The macros give us calories or energy. The micros are needed in every single reaction in the body, growth and development, which is key to this age group. And then, of course, water is the medium of all reactions. And ironically, that's the #1 cause of injury in youth is, heat-related issues. So we need to optimize each one of these. so that we can not just support the health and growing and development of our youth, but also the demands of increased activity when you're an athlete or an exerciser. So we got 4 basic rules of performance nutrition really quickly. You got to eat the right amount first and foremost for everything that you've got to fuel, and then also if you've got any body composition goals. Rule 2, you got to eat the right foods in the right ratios, and that's highly dependent on what activity you are performing. Rule 3 is timing, right? Not just of food, but also fluids. You want to time properly. And then rule 4 is you want to supplement wisely. And this is where, with adolescents and teens, they tend to, maybe want to, do this too much and not focus on the other rules. So we want to make sure that we're applying all these, properly. So rule 1, eat the right amount. We only have guidelines for youth. It's not like with adults, they do extensive, testing and all this other stuff to make sure that we've got these formulas. With youth, they're more like guidelines. And so the Dietary Guidelines of Americans, I put the link in here for you. It provides a starting point, right? What do you notice on this chart? Basically, if you look towards the bottom, the population we're talking about, right? Someone sedentary versus someone active, significant differences, right? If you're going through a growth spurt, what do we know about that, Neal? When our kids are going through a growth spurt, they're like, they can't, like a garbage dispenser.
Take a look at this. You look at the amount of calories here. If you look at age 4, go to the top, 1,600 calories for an active age 4 child. Well, that would make the average female in the United States overweight. Isn't that crazy? That's just pretty crazy. Just giving you an idea how important nutrition is for a growing child development, as the brain comes together and all these things. And that's all done by nutrition. It's not done by medicine or something weird or some kind of divine intervention. It's what goes in the body that builds all these things. So, that development is so important during this entire period. And you can see how many more calories the growing youth requires.
So you can use this as a rough guideline, and then inevitably, just like with your, adult clients, you're going to judge, you're going to maybe adjust this based on how their body is changing.
And then remember, right? Our program does this for you too. I mean, all of you that use our program, don't worry about it. Yeah, those are the algorithms behind the program.
Absolutely. Okay, so for weight loss, if you're focusing on weight loss in this age group, pre-puberty, you don't want to diet. You want to allow their growth sort of to normalize their weight. You want them to, sort of grow into their bodies. You want to avoid dieting. You want to focus on good food choices. And then just like adults, if they lose too much or gain too much, it's going to hinder performance. And if you've got an in-season athlete, and I saw this time and time again, Neal, you probably did too, and they're losing weight and they're still growing, that means they're not eating enough, right?
Yeah.
So for muscle gain and performance, same thing, too much too fast may slow them down. They've got to consistently sustain a calorie surplus, which a lot of times is difficult, and resistance train regularly or some type of stimulus, like Neal said. How much a kid gains is totally dependent on so many variables, right? But for some tips, getting your kids, if you have a kid that's not, they're constantly losing weight or they just stay skinny, you want to get them to eat consistently throughout the day. So 4 to 6 times a day, consistent eating with good snacks. You want to maintain that calorie surplus. You want protein at each meal, and we'll go into this a little bit more. Eating larger portion sizes is a great way to sort of get them to eat more just by doing, not stuffing their faces, by, add an extra piece of toast or drink an extra glass of milk or juice or have a little extra serving of, good carbohydrates. And then maybe even drinking extra calories is another way to go to get quality nutrients into their body. Choosing more calorie dense foods, whole milk versus non-fat, granola versus cereal, dried fruit versus, whole. You want both, but just adding those in as snacks or as part of their routine will add those calories. And of course, fat. You need fat for a lot of reasons. So you want to add that as well. So these are just little practical tips that you guys can utilize if you're working with kids that want to gain some muscle. It's not, just do one thing. It's how can you apply these little things that works with the kid's personality. Okay, so tips for weight loss. Like we said, you want to avoid overemphasizing body weight and weight loss, right? So the whole dieting mentality can be very damaging, particularly for teen girls. So we want to avoid saying anything like you need to go on a diet or you need to, get on a cleanse or a tea so that you can get to the right body weight. Instead, You know, you want to focus on the positive, not using junk food as a reward, but hey, let's, you know, see if we can fit in more fruits and veggies that you enjoy. Less packaged foods, more lean protein, less high fat protein. This is like a staple in all kids' menus, right? Chicken nuggets, hot dogs, and fried fish. More water and calcium rich beverages, and then less soda, juices, and sports drinks, except for during training. And then parents out there, you want to make sure that you make it easy for your kids to make the right choices, right? You'll see this at Neal's house and at my house. It's really easy to make the right choice. And then if we want to have a treat or whatever, it's more, you know, difficult to do, or it's planned. Any comments anything you want to add here, Neal?
No, I mean, my simple rule for every youth athlete that I coach, or any youth period, and parents of kids that are growing up that maybe are struggling with that information, I go, hey, listen, as long as you eat everything you need, and here's what you need, you can have whatever you want. So they would eat whatever they needed, and then well, I really don't want what I thought I wanted. So there's kind of a little way you can play the whole thing off without, being, psycho about what your kids need to eat. Because I mean, I was never that, and that was the one thing that, it was mad. I empowered them to be able to figure it out. It's just giving them the right message.
Yep. Right. That whole all or none mentality, right? Like you can't never have any good quote unquote treat that might backfire on you. Okay. So rule 1, eat the right amount. Rule 2, eat the right foods in the right ratio. So let's talk about macros. What kids sometimes don't understand because of all the stigma around carbohydrates is the most effective and efficient fuel for energy, right? That's what your body relies on most. So your nervous system, your brain, your ability to concentrate, all of that relies upon carbohydrates. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at how the body uses fuel during exercise. So in blue is carbohydrates. In pink is triglycerides or fats. So what you're looking at is the percentage of each one as it contributes to exercise. Now across the bottom is exercise intensity, or their effort, their level of effort. So what do you notice? As effort increases, what goes up? Carbohydrate use goes up, and what goes down? Well, fat usage goes down, and that's because it takes fewer steps to make energy using carbohydrates than fat. That's a long process. So kids need extra high quality carbohydrates. And unlike proteins and fats, unlike protein, I should say, you can store carbohydrates, but only in limited amounts. So you want to look at your body as, okay, you are a Lamborghini. You have 2 main fuel tanks. You've got muscle, which you can store some, right, for your workouts. And then you've got your liver, and that's to help maintain your blood sugar level so you can focus and so you can concentrate. But because you can only store a little bit at a time, you have to consistently refuel. That's one of the reasons why breakfast is named breakfast, because you break fast, right? So blood sugar is important for concentration, for not making mental errors, etc. So the key point here, you guys, you've got to eat regular meals to constantly refill your fuel tanks. And here's what it looks like when you have signs of low blood sugar. And Neal, you can attest to this, especially in the heat, and they're wearing heavy equipment, right?
Yeah, so if you look at everything here, like coaching Pop Warner and in the heat, because we start our practices in July as we build through the season. So July and August are miserable, when it comes to the temperatures and so forth. During this time, every single thing you see here is all from just not hydrating and eating properly before you got to practice. Every bit of it. So there was never a time that this was 100% related to their nutrition before they got to practice, which is why I made sure that they would do everything right. And this is the kind of thing that makes a kid quit playing, makes a kid quit being active, because they got so tired, they just didn't feel good, so they didn't do well in practice, and go, Mom, I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yep.
Okay. And that's what it does. So that's the significance of nutrition in a growing child. Make it proper so that they can actually do what their bodies really can do. So you avoid these things.
And what's interesting too, to Neal's point, is that if you look at some stats around injuries in youth players, you know, a lot of them occur within that last 15 to 20 minutes when the fatigue kicks in, when you deplete your muscle stores of carbohydrates. So you don't want people to avoid carbohydrates, especially young girls. They're watching their weight. They might want to try a low carb or a keto diet. Well, if they're an athlete, guess what's going to happen? They're going to struggle.
Yeah, something bad.
Okay, now what this Exactly. Now, what this shows is how carbohydrates, a high carb diet versus a high protein, high fat diet will do to your muscle stores of glycogen. So as you can tell in the high carb diet, their starting levels of glycogen, right? Carbohydrate stored in muscle is higher than high protein or fat diet. Now, what do you notice with exercise? Well, they both get depleted, but look at the carb diet. You refill that tank pretty well. What do you notice about the protein fat diet? You don't refill the fuel tank. So what are you going to do? You're going to compromise your performance or your training the next day. And as you continue to eat low carb, your performance is going to continue to suffer. Not to mention all the other things the kids need for growth and development and concentration. So you're going to ask if quality matters. It absolutely does. So nutrient dense sources that are filling, you want to eat more often, everything on the left, right? And whole grains and are really, and grain products are really a good source of vitamins and minerals, particularly iron, which we'll talk about later, which are needed in higher amounts. And then these ones on the right, we're not saying don't eat them. Like Neal said, we're not these crazy, food police parents. We're just saying eat the stuff on the left most of the time and enjoy the stuff on the right occasionally. Right, but to have them around constantly all the time, you're setting up your kids to creating some poor habits later on. So, fruits and veggies is not a sexy topic for kids, right? It's like they roll their eyes when you tell them to eat their fruits and veggies. So we want to make it easy. That's one of the cornerstones of making a new habit. How do you make it easy to do? Well, make them easily accessible. You want them on the counter, right in the fridge when they open up the refrigerator. You want them easily accessible. You want to include them at each meal. You want to add it to stuff, like adding it to yogurt and cereal and oatmeal and pancakes, and adding veggies into sandwiches like this pretty picture here, or sneaking into, like I sneak spinach and zucchini into my lasagna, or, pasta and omelets and wraps. And then starting meals with a green salad. You'll see this at Neal's house all the time. Go to have dinner at Neal's house, almost always going to have a gigantic salad that everybody eats from, as well as an extra portion of some kind of veggies. And then some, choosing a fruit-based dessert is a great way to show how kids can enjoy the sweet taste with something that's rich in nutrients. Okay, protein. Neal, do you want me to keep going, or you want to take over protein?
Oh, this is good. I'll take this one if you want. Yeah. I mean, protein
Okay,
function, I think everyone, even every of the general public knows what protein does. It is, your muscle is made of protein, and that's what it used to repair it after we damage it, right? It also has many other functions, though, as it says here, supports the immune system, the tissue of the bone, organ, hair, nails. All these are different proteins, but these are amino acids that are all strung together that form a different part of the body, all right? And of course, and again, this is just simply a list of the amino acids, the essential. In other words, our body can't make the ones on the left. The ones in the middle, when our bodies are stressed, we don't make enough, right? And then the non-essential are ones our body can make from pretty much anything, anytime that we need it. Yeah. So, and again, no one argues this when it looks at protein quality, and all protein quality means to anyone that's listening to this, it just means that you need less protein for more bang for your buck. In other words, 1 gram of whey is superior to 1 gram of casein, 1 gram of egg, soy, and of course, collagen is an incomplete protein, so it doesn't even register on the scale. But they all, every one of them sort of are differently structured. So at the end of the day, that's all this means, that the ability to absorb it and use it in the body, without a doubt, whey is superior, and which is why that's all you see in stores, and that's what you see, all through the bodybuilding world, and everything else is whey. You just get bigger bang for the buck. But it doesn't mean you have to have whey. because it's just a matter of getting enough protein as long as they're complete, and the complete proteins are listed up there. Soy actually is a complete protein, but it's very low on a few different amino acids, and so you have to eat 2 times more soy to get the same amount of digestibility and effectiveness as whey.
Okay, cool.
And these are your protein sources. Obviously, on the left, you can see this, and it's like, I know you know this, but it's a nice reminder, to everybody here. You look at the left. Obviously, you want lean because there's nothing wrong with red meat. There's all kinds of vitamin and minerals you can't get from other types of foods as long as it's lean. Okay, and you've got lots of different types of lean meats, like a flank steak or a round steak. Those are very, very lean. They're as lean as skinless chicken, by the way. So there's nothing wrong with that once in a while. And you got your turkey and so forth, and obviously fish. And I know kids don't like fish, and I struggle with mine. My son Zane, I don't think he's ever had any fish, right? So he makes sure he takes his omega-3 supplement all the time. Nelson eats fish. He eats it regularly. And of course, I eat tons of it. It's almost part of every week, for me. So that's a great source. It's like the Mediterranean diet. That's their main source of protein as well. And then the lower, you guys know that bacon, sausage, ham, even though bacon is like the most unbelievable smelling food in the world and the best tasting food in the world, it's just that should be a treat, so, but anyway, these are all the ones here. Obviously, any fatty meat is just not a good one. Oops. Somehow
Sorry,
we got
Neal.
back to the first.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. That's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. So, and then if you guys would just maybe take inventory for the kids you're working with, this is the stuff you'll see that's more common, like in snack bars and things like that, right? So you want to just take inventory.
They're selling food, and they got to sell it, and that's what attracts people. So that's why we've got to get, at some point you got to say, hey, listen, this is what you do at home, and the other thing, every once in a while, like we talked about, you go ahead and treat them to fish and chips or whatever they want.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going, Neal.
Yeah, this is something I want everybody to understand. Veganism has become very big. So I'm not talking about vegetarianism, because vegetarian could be lacto-ovo. It means you can have milk and eggs and things like this, and that's all good. But one thing to be very careful here: protein sources from plants. There's a bunch of different. There's a few issues with them. First of all, there are no complete ones. Soy is the only one that can, and still have to eat twice as much to get, from animal than you would get from animal protein. But so there's some issues with this, and they're all listed here. And go to the next slide for a second here. Okay. I just what I would like to say here is this: is that while I applaud veganism, and I think that it's just wonderful for the environment and anybody that can do it, as long as you're complementing your diet properly with all the different beans and lentils, so you can get a complete protein out of it all. I applaud all that. But on a growing child, it can be very, very difficult. So I would warn, or at least caution, any parent that tries to raise a child, especially going up before puberty finishes, to do a vegan. It's not a natural thing for human beings. A lot of nutrients are not absorbed because of phytates and oxalates that are in different vegetables and so forth. So you just got to be careful with that, and the iron sources, and all of those things. So that's the one thing. You can be as totally plant-based. That's easy. I'm plant-based at the end of the day. But I'm omnivore, but I'm plant-based. I have more plants and stuff on my thing than I do on the protein. But I'm just that was the one word of caution I would like parents to do. I applaud you for being vegan, but I would be very careful about raising a child until they finish their growth.
And I'm going to echo that and say that, obviously vegans are not getting the nutrients only in animal foods like calcium, vitamin D, which are important for bone. We'll get into that, but also iron. And so you put your kids at risk for becoming insufficient and deficient in nutrients if you're not somehow resolving that within the diet, if you're following a vegan diet.
And then protein recommendations, I'm gonna make it real simple for you. 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. I know you don't know what the lean body mass is of your kid. So a growing kid, just make it 1 gram per pound, okay? And you can easily get by with a little less than that. but that will cover all their growth and development, and it also helps kind of keep their weight proper as they get older.
Okay, cool. And you know, you consume it at each meal. You make a conscious choice to consume a good protein source at each meal. You're going to cover that, right, Neal?
Yep.
Okay, so dietary fats, do we need them? Yes, we want to focus on the green, the PUFAs, right? The acronym for polyunsaturated fatty acids. And again, these are essential. Your body requires fat and cholesterol for every single cell in the body. These are the essential. The omega-3s are the ones that are crucial for brain development, also for heart health. Arachidonic acid is also needed. And then we need them to carry fat-soluble vitamins. So you don't want to go on an extremely low-fat diet. You want to go with no less than, 20%, no more than 30%. You don't want to have high-fat diets before exercise because that's going to slow digest. It's going to feel like a rock in the stomach. But you do want to limit saturated fat like lard, butter, too much animal fats, and focus on the plant sources, and then incorporate your oily fish with your omega-3 fats, 2 to 3 fish seafood meals weekly. There's so much information about omega-3 fats and brain development. Neal points out all the time, even your doctors will recommend that, pregnant women take an omega-3 supplement if they're not getting enough from their diet, because it is so crucial to the proper development of kids. Okay, calcium is a key nutrient of concern. We need more for not just muscle contraction, but also bone density and growth. The requirements are higher than at any other time in life. So that equates to about 3 to 4 servings per day of these. You can see here on the chart, the serving size and the typical amount. So you can see how milk, a few glasses of milk a day is going to cover the basis for a lot of people, and how lower it is in greens. Yes, you can get them from greens. So once again, if you're following a vegan diet, that's a lot. You got to do a lot of careful planning there to get enough covered. And then vitamin D, our sunshine vitamin, this is critical. This is critical in the news constantly nowadays, because we now are seeing the close relationship between vitamin D and immune system, not just bone health, but immune system, inflammation, and a lot of other things. Most people, they get 90% of their vitamin D from the sun, 10% from the diet. But if you're not going outside, or if you live in a cloudy area, you don't eat, any of these food sources on here, you are at risk of getting deficient, and it's widespread. And Neal's got some stats to share with you on this. So why don't you cover this, Neal? Talk about bone mass.
Yeah, this is really important because, as I've been lecturing around the world, and especially about kids and supporting their diet with the proper sort of nutrients if they're not getting it from their food, this has got to be number one here, and vitamin D as well, because calcium doesn't work without vitamin D. And every one of your kids is low in vitamin D. If they're not taking a multivitamin, every one of your kids, and there's no exception. Okay, so but this is what people miss. Look at the way bone grows in the body. By the time you finish puberty, you're pretty much 80% of your bone is done. Done. So if you haven't built much because you didn't have enough calcium growing up and vitamin D growing up, which most kids don't, unless somehow they're continue to drink milk, okay, like all your world's strongest men from Iceland and from Sweden and from all those, but they never stop drinking milk, so their bones never break. So so the bone mass is freaky if you've had all the calcium and vitamin D that you've needed growing up. But if you stop drinking milk, which a lot of kids do because their parents stopped drinking it, they don't put it in there anymore, or they read some weird internet note or something about milk, so they flipped out of it. You miss your calcium. There's other ways to get calcium, cottage cheese, and other things, so don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying that was the easiest way to get both of those things. And if you don't get enough during those years, you can't go back and fix that. So you can see what happens to bone here. If your peak mass is 30. From there on out, you only go backwards. We call that resorption. It just begins to break it down. But if you have enough bone, you won't live long enough to lose enough to have osteoporosis. But you look at every 75% of Americans over the age 70 have osteoporosis or osteopenia at the beginning of that. They fracture like this. they fall. All of these things are all part of not getting enough calcium and vitamin D. So you can't go back and fix those windows of growth opportunity. It has set you up for weakness for the rest of your life. Hey, if we all died at 30, we'd be fine. Who cares? But now that we have figured out how to live longer and longer and longer, this is such an important nutrient. By the way, it's so important in 2020, which is right now. By law, every food has to tell you how much calcium's in it. Right, so that's how important it is right now. So just make sure your kids are getting anywhere from at least 1,200, 1,300 milligrams of calcium.
Okay, cool. So how do we put all this together? Well, Harvard captured a really good healthy eating plate, right? It actually makes sense. So fill up half of your plate with colorful fruits and vegetables. Get your healthy fats. You want to have a good source of whole grains and healthy protein. So that's how you would help your kids build, a healthy eating plate. They have water here, but like Neal just pointed out, you're a growing kid, you need to get a milk or a fortified alternative. So make sure that you read the label and see that it has fortification with calcium and vitamin D. And then for growing athletes, high levels of activity, kids need extra carbohydrates to fuel activity. We saw that in the beginning, right? Carbs are the key main source of energy. So you want to add that. So here's some pre-exercise guidelines for you. You can see there's some pictures. You probably noticed it's high carb, low fiber. You don't want to eat tons of beans or, big gigantic salads before a high intensity or long duration event. You want it to be low fat, moderate in protein. And then your liquid meal replacements is one of the reasons why we formulate First String the way it is. It's got 2-to-1 carbs, 21 grams of whey. So we're able to, it's really, just ground up food, as Neal always says. And then we want to have appropriate portions from trial and error, things that are tried and true. So you want to avoid trying anything new. Like, kids are like, let's go here to this place and try something new before they play. And you don't want to do that. You want to go with something tried and true because they can end up having GI distress. Okay, so rule 1 was eat the right amount. Rule 2, right? Eat the right ratios, right foods in the right ratios. And now rule 3 is timing. So for pre-exercise, you want an empty stomach, but a full, fuel tank, if you will. And then you want to be properly hydrated. So the timing goes like this: regular meal around 4 hours before, having a regular meal, just like the healthy plate I showed you. If not, maybe a lighter meal, right? Because the general rule is, right, the more time you have before you compete or train, the larger your meal could be. And of course, the opposite is true as well. The less time you have, then of course, the lighter the meal has to be. You don't want food sitting in your stomach. So you might want to also go with a snack 30 to 1 hour before. What do we mean by that? Something that's high carb, moderate protein, easy to digest, like a liquid formula. And then the timing is going to vary. My son can eat a couple hours before a pretty good meal and not have any stomach issues. That's just, trial and error. Okay, options for early morning exercise, right, Neal? You call this what? You call this?
I call it bed to gym or bed to field. Yeah, right. So getting athletes up early in the morning isn't easy. But if they've got to practice early, and especially by the time they get to high school or college, if they got an early morning practice, then they eat a big meal before they go to bed, that pre-exercise meal we just looked at. And then after that, they just do their shake in the morning and they're ready to go.
And those are just some ideas for you guys. They might be, if they've got like football in the heat, or, they've got endurance type activity, that you might want to go with the shake and the bagel and the fruit, all three of them. It just depends on how much fuel they need, right? Okay, post-exercise, this is what you want. The goals for post-exercise: refill the fuel tanks, right? Replenish that glycogen, get some good protein in for recovery and growth. Your muscles are super sensitive to nutrient uptake. It's the most efficient time frame to replenish and rebuild your glycogen store. So you don't really want to wait that long to replenish. It's critical if you're competing, again, like in basketball. Sometimes they play 3 games a day. So I've got to make sure the refueling happens in between. And what we know in the research is that, having a shake is perfect for that. Put back the fuel in the tank, increase muscle repair, and help immune function. And then, we need that, gram per pound per day. And the shake sort of gives you a good dose of that. in an easy, just convenient way if you're especially, going from game to game, etc. So after intense exercise, greater than 60 minutes per day where you're depleting glycogen stores or you're playing multiple times a day, you want that snack immediately after. High carbohydrates, have a regular meal, so my kids' routine would look like shake right afterwards, and then we would go eat a regular meal an hour to two after that. And then for resistance training, the shake just helps meet daily protein and calorie targets. It's just ground up food, right? It's from whey protein derived from milk, so it's really ground up food, and then a regular meal 3 to 4 hours of your previous meals. Here's some ideas, some just common ideas that you could help your kids if you're trying to decide what should my kid eat before or after. These are just common examples you could utilize to help them make good choices. Okay, a Big Mac is not on here, which they can have, just not before a game. Okay, with fluids, I'm going to just briefly go through these. I'm going to give you guys these guidelines so you can download them, but essentially, having heat illness is the #1 reason for cause for injury, not just in youth, but in all ages. So you want to make it a priority to make sure that they're hydrating 2 hours before, having a bottle of water, 15 minutes, sipping on it, and then having it readily available. Now, after exercise is especially critical for people who are exercising in the heat, outside in the heat and humidity, or they're doing long events. Right. So you want to make sure that you replace fluid. So, making sure that you're getting 16 ounces for every pound lost until the urine is pale. And that's really a great indicator is your urine color. Right. So if you can look at the top 1 through 3, that's the color of the urine you want to teach kids to look for, like lemonade, essentially. Whereas the darker colors, like the color apple juice, means they're not adequately hydrated. So, there's so many symptoms of dehydration. Obviously headache's a big one. They're complaining of a headache. Being thirsty typically means it's too, they're already somewhat dehydrated. And kids are different than adults because they tolerate heat less efficiently. Their thirst mechanisms can be underdeveloped. So as adults, we want to provide regular water breaks. And I've seen coaches, Neal, you may have too, that restrict water. It's almost like, if you're not, meeting performance goals or trying hard, then you don't get to drink water. But you want to do the opposite. You want to make sure they're hydrating, on a regular basis. Anything you want to add to that, Neal?
No, that's it. I mean, being a youth coach, you assign your assistants to look at every kid to make sure they drink during a water break because they don't have the same mechanisms yet. They're not mature.
Exactly. Okay, so sources. You don't just get water from water, right? You get it from food. About a third will come from your food, depending. Beverages all contribute to water intake in addition to water. And the requirements in general are between 8 to 15 cups, more if you're active, more if it's hot or humid. Just a general tip to get 2 glasses with every meal and snack. Look for their urine color. Teach your kids to monitor their urine color to be pale yellow like lemonade. Now, what about sports drinks? How do I know if I need a sports drink? When is it indicated? Well, if you're exercising longer than 60 minutes, right, you're doing multiple trainings a day, it's hot or humid, or if your kid's just not eating adequate amount of food during the day, right? Like kids are notorious for not eating well throughout the day and coming home starving or being hungry during practices. So it's not ideal, but it could be a way to get extra fuel, right? It helps to maintain blood glucose. Actually, hydration occurs better when kids get to sip on sports drinks. And then, the carbs provide the energy for workouts. If you get more than that, like if you try to, drink juice or something, during activity, you're going to cause a stomach ache. And then the electrolytes are needed to help replace those lost in sweat. Some of your kids are heavy sweaters, right? They end up having crusty shirts or whatever. That's the salt. They're losing a lot of salt. So you want to make sure that you replenish with that.
And just a quick note on this to parents that are, if your kid is not exercise, there is absolutely no reason to drink this. In fact, if anything, it's unhealthy for them. This is actually something that when you do sweat a lot and you are not hydrated properly and you're not eating great, these things can be very helpful for a kid growing up. We filled all of our water buckets with half Gatorade, half water. We actually mixed it. So they would actually use it that way because we're in helmets, we're in full gear and it's 100 degrees outside practicing. So these are important for that type of athlete and so forth, but don't get caught up thinking this is healthy for a sedentary kid or a growing kid. You don't need, this is definitely not counterproductive.
Yeah, and you don't want it to be readily accessible just for them to sip on throughout the day, because what does it do? It displaces. Right, it displaces other stuff they should be consuming, like milk and fruits and vegetables and things like that. Okay, rule 4, we want to supplement wisely. And the key questions to answer in this regard are they needed for one? Are they safe? And are they effective? So just real quick, micronutrients, they're essential. You've got to attain 32 of them from the diet in adequate amounts on a daily basis to support normal function, growth, development, and optimal health. And the reality is, people ask me all the time, can't I just get all of this from food? Yes, you can. Here's how you would do it. So let's just take a typical growing teenager right here on, let's say, 2,400 calories a day, right? Probably need more. They would have to consume 3 cups equivalents of vegetables every single day, along with 2 cup equivalents of fruits. And it has to be broken down like this. Dark green vegetables, 2 cup equivalents per week. Red and orange vegetables, 6 cup equivalents per week. Legumes, beans, and peas, 2 cup equivalents per week. Starchy vegetables, 6. Other vegetables, 5. Essentially, you got to eat like the color of the rainbow, right? But think to yourself, are you a creature of habit? Do you eat the same things over and over again? If you're not, you're missing some micronutrients. If you're not getting all those things. Let's continue from the other major food groups. Grains. You need whole grains for the fiber and the minerals. Refined grains can be a source of iron and other minerals and B vitamins like folate that are critical. Dairy. Why is dairy a major food group? Because it provides calcium and vitamin D, which, by the way, is added to the food supplies because kids aren't getting enough. Protein foods, 6-ounce equivalents. Now, all of these are minimal. This protein is minimal, not optimal, right, for sedentary individuals. 10 ounces of seafood. That's, about 3 fish foods a week for your omega-3 fats. You also need your meats, poultry, eggs, and you need your plant sources of protein as well. So, along with your fats or oils, right, from plants. So if you did that on a regular rotating basis, you can maximize your intake of nutrients and still fall short. So as you can see, it's not an easy feat. And if you look at the typical dietary patterns in the United States, you can see that everybody falls, well, I shouldn't say everybody, nearly everyone falls short, right? And Americans consistently are missing 9 different nutrients. These are called nutrients of concern that are underconsumed in the population. And Neal, you got some data just recently. What does it show about kids?
Well, the worst offenders are kids anywhere from the age, what starts usually around age 6 to 7. Once they get off formula, because by the way, a formula, when you're taking baby formula, that's a multivitamin mineral. That is all fortified. So they've already got their calcium in there. They got their vitamins and minerals, and we show them good because they're taking a vitamin mineral. Okay, and then after that, it starts getting worse and worse and worse. The worst offenders are, the age group of about 11 through 18. The worst offenders, that makes this look, they're missing all this stuff. Not just part of it. They're a part of every one of those percentage points that you see in there. And we have all the real data on that. And it really is really terrible.
Scary.
And all the things that you just showed that kids would have to eat in order to get, and that's a kid that's not moving, let alone an athlete.
Yeah.
You have to eat. There's no kid on the planet that eats like that. None.
So some key considerations for adolescents, like we said, all of them are important, but between ages 9 and 18, they need more of certain things like calcium, like vitamin D, like iron, especially for kids who start their period. So you want to make sure you're prioritizing these food choices, right? I'm a huge proponent of drinking milk, but I understand, some aren't. I don't know why, maybe lactose intolerance, which is somewhat misunderstood. But bottom line is we got to get our kids to make smarter food choices so that we can maximize their growth and development. So Neal, let's talk about, our formulas.
Yeah. So let's just, we'll get through this, quickly here. But listen, this is not negotiable for your child. Let me just make this very clear. It was not negotiable for you, Mom, on the prenatal, right? Your doc said, here's a prescription for the prenatal, which is a multivitamin mineral. All right, so that wasn't negotiable then, and it's not negotiable when the kid comes out of the womb. This is forever to make up for all the things they're not getting. This is not an excuse to eat poorly. No one does that. In fact, it's the opposite. Kids that use vitamins eat better. We know that from studies than kids that don't, because everything just seems to be working and they do all the right things. Kids that actually get the calcium they need and the vitamin D they need generally from milk fracture 8 times less than kids that don't. 8 times. So we're talking about making sure. It's neglectful not to do this. It's neglectful. Mm-hmm. So this is not negotiable here. So the kids, you take one from age 2 to 4, you take one kid's multi because they have teeth now. It's a chewable, and it's got all those. It has 19 of it has the known underconsumed nutrients. It would take you at least 6 different formulas to put that together. We put it all in one to make it easy for the kid and easy for you, mom and dad. And then they switch to an active at age 12. They take one a day until 18, and then they just flip to 2 or move over to the woman's. But the point is, this fills those gaps that we know they have. They are known. And you're not going to get it with a gummy.
And then just note, if you guys
I mean, take those gummies. If you've got them in your cabinet right now, take them out and get rid of them, or give them to one of your small mammals in the house, like a cat or a dog or something.
Note here, you guys, this is not common, but we did put 500 international units of vitamin D in the kids, 600 per tablet of vitamin D in the active MB. So you're going to get a little bit of insurance there as well.
And the choline.
Now we get this question,
there, which is a nutrient of concern just recently. You won't find a vitamin mineral with choline in it.
Yep.
We are so far. We're
common.
A practitioner product. We don't sell in the mass market. This is what you make for people that really understand what the body needs. It's called a practitioner product, goes to the practitioner. So make sure you understand that as well.
Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit more real quickly, but we get this question all the time about shakes. Do you need shakes? No, you don't need shakes, but they're not supplements. They're ground up food. We don't look at them like supplements, right? It's a really easy way to get high quality protein. Remember, whey and casein are at the top of the scale on quality, and that's exactly what we use. Convenience, like I said, on the go, which kids are on the go all the time. You can easily add it to food. I love adding it to yogurt and oatmeal, especially on the go, pancakes. We have a bunch of recipes on the website and on our Instagram. Snacking in between meals. And then again, because it's delivered in liquid formula, you can digest it real quickly for before and for after to refuel, replenish, or top off those muscle glycogen stores. So go ahead, Neal, I'll let you take this.
Well, this is what we have give all of our growing children. This is it, because it's a 2-to-1 ratio of carbs, and you now understand why. Okay, for the growing children. So it's got everything that you possibly need in it. And as Kat just mentioned, these aren't supplements. These are food products. All we have done is made it easier and higher nutrition with less calories to get the things that you need to supplement the diet. All right, to support the diet, to make sure these kids have everything they need to grow and develop properly. Look at the amount of calcium in here. This thing is loaded with calcium, so hopefully they'll never have to take a calcium supplement. But shame on you if they're not getting enough calcium and they're not taking some kind of supplement to make it up, because you can't do it later on. So this has got a ton in there, because we much prefer they just get it from their food, and this is a food.
Not to mention food, but add food to it. I used to add peanut butter and bananas and milk all into it, right, to get my kid to replenish.
That's how I got my kids to eat fruit. That's how I got my kids to eat fruit. I just put the fruit in there. You know, they loved it. You get a great smoothie out of it.
They do. Exactly. We have other options, you guys. Protein powders. You may or may not have seen our unflavored protein. So if you just want just a protein and add your own stuff to it. And then we also have an all natural version for those of you who want the grass-fed, non-GMO, etc., with no artificial colors and flavors. And then for your plant-based or vegan, these is from pea protein and from seeds. And then we fortified it with extra branched chain amino acids, the essential amino acids, so that it matches the whey protein. So this is probably your most unique plant protein that you'll see in the market if you do direct comparisons, so that your body can get the essential aminos it needs before and after the workouts. Okay, Neal, what about other supplements, Neal?
Just real quick, that's all what we just showed you is the only thing we do for youth athletes. But this is the number one question I get from all you trainers out there and you guys that have kids. Should my kid take the essential, the amino boost? Well, we have on that, the label always says no one under 18, and that's what we call CYA, a cover your ass business decision, right? For no reason. We don't test things on kids, right? So we don't have studies on kids and how this works or this works. But we do know, if you know anything about science, you know anything about amino acids, this can't hurt anybody. It can only help you with recovery. But there's no need for a growing kid to use this unless they are, we work with gymnasts who have to keep their weight down and they work out like crazy amounts of time. This can give them that muscle protein synthesis to be able to keep them strong and recover during very low calories. If they're training like crazy, like some of these high school elite athletes really overreach, we call it overtraining, then yes, then you're fine to do this. But we always say, somewhere around age 16 is totally fine. This is kind of the next level of recovery. So that's how it kind of fits into the whole picture. We have, of course, we have the vegan one as well. Yeah.
Okay. So just really quickly, it's important that you guys understand the issues with mass market supplements, right? We talked about this before. Supplements aren't regulated like pharmaceuticals, like medication. So they can go to market and be underformulated. So here's an example of underformulated products, right? Here's what the label is claiming. If you look on the right and the label claim of protein, and here's what the independent test results show, that they all have less than what was on there. And that's the issue with non-practitioner products, is you can get stuff that's just not very high quality, doesn't have the amounts that's needed that you're looking for. The same thing can be said to vitamins and minerals with, class action lawsuits around and manufacturers having to refund because, like gummies, like Neal was talking about, has only a fraction of nutritional substance it claims. So you want to avoid products that are not made properly, and people don't know the difference. And we've got to educate people on that. Even more problematic can be tainted. You don't want to have your kid take something that's tainted. You're like, what could it be tainted with? Well, if you look online, the FDA has a database of over 900, close to 1,000 now, and you can get things like sibutramine, a laxative, generic form of Viagra, even generic form of Prozac, all of these things found in dietary supplements that aren't practitioner products. So what DotFit does is we solved this issue with doing a multi-pronged approach. Everything is third-party tested on our line, every single product. And then we also have an NSF certified for sport line that's tested in addition for banned substances, over almost 300, maybe close to 300 now that it's being tested for. And then all the product formulas are based on the evidence. What does the evidence show? And then all of that, of course, as you guys know, especially if you're a trainer, we talk about it in our certification. It's published online in our practitioner dietary supplement reference guide. And this is one of the reasons why we are, one of the largest distributors, not the largest distributors in the sports channel, if you will. It's probably
we are the largest distributor of programs and products in the sport and fitness channel.
Yeah. So there you have it.
There's a reason for that.
We solve it.
It's a practitioner product, third-party testing, and it works. Yeah.
Okay, so just here's a quick summary of you guys. We know that, high quality nutrition from a food first approach is what our youth need to learn by using these rules: eating the right amount for your body and your goals, eating the right foods in the right ratios, proper timing, and then using supplements wisely to fill gaps or to reach your calorie and protein targets, right? So, Neal?
You know how simple it is? So, Kat, should I be able to share my screen? Should I be able to do it?
Let me just pass it off to you. Yeah, let me pass it off to you.
And then here is, I just want to show them this.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me switch this and I'll show you in case those of you have to drop off. It's 11:59, right? So we want to make sure you guys see our. Yeah, let's do it. So those of you who have to drop off, don't leave. Just real quick. Online, you get a 20%.
Yeah, go ahead. Go. Yeah.
Okay. Online, 20% discount. So if you're a new member, or if you're with a gym, go to your gym. Your gym will hook you up. I know we're on lockdown, but if you're still connected, somehow can get to your gym's website. They'll have a link for you guys to sign up. But if not, you can go register to get a 20% discount. And then just for this masterclass, we are giving this coupon code away for an additional 20% off that expires July 1st. So once you add stuff to your cart, add in May 2020 masterclass, and you're going to get a 20% discount on top of the online discount. Right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. And then if
so
you're looking for
some places are giving up 40% to you. You're going to have 20% off the 40%. So we're just trying to make sure that everybody has what they need during this tough time. That's all there.
Exactly.
So should I hit share? I want to just show everybody how.
One second.
Yep.
Yep. Let me just give people the NSF link. So if you guys are looking for our complete NSF Certified for Sport link, that's it. Now, if you don't believe us, go to the NSF website and type in .fit, and you'll see all the products that are there. And then articles and FAQs on youth sports. I know a lot of you have questions on creatine. We've answered that several times, right? Again, to Neal's point, there's no studies. Well, actually, there are. But we'll address that online.
12-year-old soccer players now, they're studying with creatine. And there's nothing unhealthy about it. It's just one of those things you just kind of wait, you know. And a lot of kids, they don't need it. Even though they think they need it, they don't need it. I wouldn't let my kid play high school football without it, but I'm just telling you, because if you recover better, you know, and it can help prevent injury too at the same time.
Okay, so Neal's going to share a document which we'll send you guys out on an email, as well as I'll attach it to the presentation once we post it online. So you should have the screen, Neal.
Okay, here we go. There it is. You guys see that? Kat, you see that?
Give it a second. I think it's a little bit of a delay.
So screen sharing is now paused. Did what? Hit that. It's on there. Okay. There. Can you see that now?
Not quite.
No. Well, anyway, I just wanted everybody has access to this.
And it's your basic layout. It's a basic layout.
Well, you know what?
For...
If we go back to you, you can show it. I sent it in your email.
Okay. Let me see if I can
if you want to do that, and they can also get this. We should make it available to them.
Yeah, I'll send it as a download.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's really cool. It's cool. It's so easy. This is what I sent to every. I mean, literally thousands and thousands I have sent over time. You know, go to the top of it there, and then if you can show it, yeah, there you go. Good. So this is it. There's your kids multi right there. If you are, depending on the ages, until age 12, then you switch to the active, right? Then you got your first string right there. And now roll that up a little bit, Kat. I actually put the calcium amounts and so forth. So you just got to make sure if you hopefully you don't need calcium. You should be able to get it and not need a calcium supplement, but you need to make sure these kids get their calcium growing up. All right, so there's someone else that doesn't push them around, you know, when they get older. You all know the older people that are pushed around now because they have osteoporosis and you're hauling them around from place to place. And if they're not eating fish and omega-3, they help with the brain, cardiovascular development, inflammation, and all those things. And then this just tells you the first string. So that's how simple it is.
Yep.
At the end of the day, that's how simple it is. There's really no cost. You got a multivitamin and mineral. Your protein saves you money in the big picture, obviously. So, you know, at the end of the day, you've got it all that easy. I put the meal timings in there. So I send that to every youth, every parent of a youth athlete. And that's pretty much all they need. Okay, let's go Q&A.
So
let's go Q&A.
Let's go Q&A. Let's go Q&A, you guys. Type in your questions. Those of you who have to leave, thank you so much for being here. And we'll set up the recording. Okay. Someone wants a webinar. Rahul wants a webinar. He says, thank you for the great knowledge, and we want to get sports specific, he says. Well, the principles are the same, but I understand where you're coming from. At what age can a kid start at the gym? What is advisable, Neal?
Say that again. I didn't hear it.
At what age can a kid start in the gym? I'm assuming about lifting weights.
Oh, you're lifting weights. You know, really, almost any age. Go to James Townsend's you know, the brave one. And you look at his daughter, I think she started at age 4. You know, I mean, listen, obviously you're not pushing heavy weights. And there was an old myth going around about growth plates. You got to wait till your growth plates are done and you're out of puberty. And of course, that has been debunked 1,000 times. In fact, if anything, weightlifting, resistance training, it doesn't have to be weightlifting, but resistance training will stimulate vertical growth. So there's really no time they can't do it if they can pick up a little something and add resistance, and that evolves over time. You're not going to be doing like, you know, 1 RMs, you know, at age, you know, 5, 6, or 7 or something, you know, or 8. But I mean, so you know, because otherwise you're going to hurt yourself. You know, the main reason that people are told that your kids shouldn't lift weights because there's not the right guide there to help them. All right, there's not someone that is qualified to instruct them on what they should do as a growing youth. But now, as you know, everywhere, everybody's working out at a very young age, starting to. As long as you go to a qualified place and make sure you have an instructor that tells you what you can, you know, what you need to do right.
Okay, so the next question is, what is the difference between moderately active and highly active? So just moderately active is 150 minutes of moderate activity per week. That equates to 30 minutes 5 days a week. And then highly active, I think it's 250 or 300 minutes a week. Okay, does being vegan impact performance? It absolutely can. Being vegan can impact performance, right, Neal? Especially if you're not getting enough iron-rich and iron-rich foods, B vitamins, and of course, vitamin D is critical as well as calcium. You know, it can, especially over time if you're not getting iron.
Yeah, so if you watch the movie Game Changers, just delete that from your whatever education thing, and every scientist in the world just scoffed at it and laughed at it. I mean, they were just cherry picking stuff to, you know, to make it look like, you know, somehow you're actually a better athlete if you're vegan. I mean, listen, I'm not saying you can't be. You could be. You guys have seen my vegan performance. Some of you, I'm sure, vegan's performance and muscle gain. You can gain as much muscle and probably even perform. It's a lot of work. You got to design the diet properly. You got to complement stuff over there. It's just not a natural thing for the human body to do that. We're omnivores, okay? But you can. So you can be that way, but it's not the normal, and it's difficult to get it all right.
Okay, good. So another question, what's the easiest way to calculate calories? All calorie calculators use a formula, use an algorithm, right? And there's a ton of them for adults, not many for kids. So the link I put up there is a great way for you to get a starting point, or plug them into our Doctor program also as a starting point. But it always takes tweaking once you have a starting point, just like an adult.
Yeah.
So what's the second source of energy?
What's that?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just saying our program nails it for you no matter what age you are. Just put it in there. It'll tell you how many calories you need based on weight gain or weight loss. And then you make the adjustments. The program does everything for you. Everything. Yeah. When you weigh yourself, it'll tell you what you need to add or subtract based on your goal.
Yeah. Okay, next question. What's the second source of energy once glycogen is empty? So the body never uses just one source of energy. It's always using a mix, primarily carbs, more fat when you're low active, but it's always going to be using a mix. But once it's sort of empty, you pretty much hit the wall. You're relying on fat for the most part, and the little glucose that the brain can make from remnants of fat and amino acids. Yeah.
And there's, and again, it can definitely burn protein for energy too. So there's a significant amount of protein. If you're a marathoner, or you're someone that's really training a long time in a steady state, you're using protein as well. Because it's just it draws from all sources. Protein is like the worst source, obviously, right? But in fat, if you get that fat burning zone as an endurance athlete, then your carbohydrate feeds that fat. That's what we call hitting the wall. You run out of carbs, and all of a sudden, now you're burning acetone. You're burning ketones, and ketones will just get you in that little place where you hit the wall. That's why carbohydrates are, certainly for an athlete, the more important fuel source. And when you run out of that, bad things happen. But that said, I don't want to get into this on this conversation, but there is such a thing as what we call running on fat loading, and then coming back to carb loading before your event as an endurance athlete. But we're not talking about with youth. You don't play around with youth like that.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Okay, Veronica, sorry we didn't see your note earlier. The slides we're going to attach on our website as a download. I didn't include them this time, but I will be sure to put them as a download. Okay, let's see. A child looking to drop a little weight, is pre-post okay versus first strain? Yeah, pre-post is fine.
Yeah. In fact, I would even go whey. Yeah. I would even go whey. If they're trying to drop a little weight, use the Whey Smooth. That's even lower calorie, higher protein.
Do you recommend, what does the recommendation of nutrition calories, vitamins per day vary for an Asian child? No, it's the same. It's the same for all kids, regardless of race. However, if you have darker skin, then your ability to, produce vitamin D is reduced from the sunshine, from sun exposure, because you just have natural skin block, which blocks the production.
And we're
so
seeing
you may
that
need
right
to
now.
pay more attention.
We're seeing that right now with COVID. The African American, and a lot of it has to do with vitamin D, not being able to get that.
Absolutely. Okay, Chancey wants to know, how early in age can I give my child fish oil or vitamin D, Neal?
Well, they're getting it in the womb. All your OBGYNs right now are giving not just a prenatal multivitamin mineral, they're giving omega-3. So they're getting it in the womb. There's never a time you can't. And if you look at all your baby formulas now, your formulas, they all have DHA. They have omega-3s in it. So they're getting it from day one and coming out and everything else. So right away.
They're getting right. And if your baby, sometimes doctors will prescribe vitamin D drops for the infants as well. So right away, And of course, to Neal's point, the doctor's going to tell the mom to supplement with fish oil for breastfeeding. Where are the slides? Sorry, Veronica left. I train my 7-year-old and 10-year-old. They both run track. Should I switch to whole milk? I guess you could, Danielle, if they're having a hard time with maintaining weight, to get those extra calories.
You know what? And I don't want to. Yeah, that's a tough one. What I mean by that is there's no way an adult should probably need whole milk, but a growing child, there's some benefits to it often. So I stuck with it, and both my boys, and when they're in their mid-20s now, they still drink whole milk. They never needed a calcium supplement either. So, what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So there's something about whole milk. I think when you get older and you're not moving as much and so forth, then of course whole milk, I would probably switch that over to non-fat. But in the meantime, I think there is a benefit. That certainly my humble opinion. I think there's some other people out there, people way smarter than me, like real scientists that believe the same thing. That I think there's a benefit to an active growing child, a very active growing child in the whole milk.
Okay, Chancey wants to know, how early in age can we start providing first drink? First of all, Chancey, you're going to breastfeed for the first year, okay? So you're not off the hook.
Okay, so here, I get to tell my story. All right, so my kids were born. So Nelson was the first one. We lived in Venice because I was still a bodybuilder, and all bodybuilders go there to die. So I lived across the street from Gold's Gym, Venice, of course, and I was actually running, the whole international nutrition program around the world for him. So we have Nelson, my first baby, and of course he comes out, and my wife's breastfeeding him, so he's getting his multivitamin mineral through her prenatal and everything else, all of that. We always made a joke because our prenatal vitamins were Apex, back then, and we always made the joke that you're going to have a 10-pound baby if you take your Apex prenatal, our prenatal. And of course we did. We had all 10-pound babies. But so after that, she disconnects. Once the kid disconnects from the main feeding device, and now you're on baby formula, right? So whenever I wasn't traveling, I would always love to feed the baby. I'd feed the kids, right? So same thing with Zane. So I'd make the formula, right? You put it in there, you mix it, with the milk and the powder, because the powder is basically a multivitamin mineral, all baby formulas. You put the powder to get her calcium and everything else, and then when she wasn't looking, I'd stick in the protein powder. So I put a whole scoop of protein powder in this, and we're talking about 9 months old, right? And of course, I know all it is ground up protein put in there, right? So I just mix it and raise the protein level. So people always ask, how come your kids are so tall, so much taller than you? And I go, it's just when their growth plates were open, I force fed them. And so I would putting in, and back then it was Apex High Performance was the powder. So I'm putting it in there. And I said, well, one day my wife goes, what are you doing? I'm just making sure they get enough protein, the whole thing. So of course there's nothing wrong with it. They won't need it. The baby formula's got enough. But I'm just a little nuts about that. Anyway,
well,
it turned out
Chancey.
okay.
Take that for what that is. Okay, Chris wants to know, I have a 9-year-old child about to start training, and I know you spoke a lot about not dieting, but this child is 5'3", 250 at age 9. How much should I stress proper nutrition? You need to work with a professional.
Yeah,
so
that jumps past me. Yeah, you need to hook up with a dietitian that specializes in youth weight loss for absolute sure. There's no conversation I can hand off on that one. And Kat, we don't. I know Kat's a dietitian, so she might have some words for you. But this is something where it's probably a regular sort of thing. Yeah.
Yep, I don't specialize in childhood obesity, so. Yeah, work with a professional, but I would not talk about nutrition too much other than encouraging them to add things, nutritious things, right? Because there's obviously at that age, at 9, at 250, 5'3", I guarantee there's underlying emotional issues that's happening.
But I would strive for the things we talked about, as far as getting the right amount of protein right now, because that can help with the satiety and making their multivitamin mineral. That helps with satiety as well. And then let the dietitian take over with, the conversation.
Okay. So my kids are 8 and 9. Can they take protein shakes? Practitioner protein shake, right? At 8 and 9. You want to make sure you don't want to get the mass market stuff. You don't want to play
just
around
get out
with
of the mass market. That's all. Of course they can.
Yeah.
You just heard me. My kids were 9 months old taking protein shakes, and they're giants.
Yeah.
But no, of course you can. A protein shake, but a practitioner one, to Kat's point, there's nothing else in it except all ground up food to help them.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned 0.6 to 1 gram of protein. Do we start this as early as 4 years old? And when is a good age to start increasing the protein to 1 gram? It's really dependent, right? There's no calculation specifically for kids. The closest thing we could take it from are studies, that are, studies are on like certain specific sports like soccer or whatever. So what they do in practice is you use your formulas up for adult athletes and you translate it to the kids. So if your kids are active, right, then the 0.6 can start at any age, and then you need more as if the kids are going through puberty or if they're they're teens that are training intensely. Any addition to that, Neal?
When you're breastfeeding, you're getting more than 1 gram. So like I say, it's 1 gram forever, from the womb to the tomb. It's 1 gram per pound. Just make it easy on yourself. Don't worry about it. They'll get, as long as you look at, each meal, there's a protein source, they'll be getting 1 gram. You're good. Just stay there at any time all the way through development. You're not going past anything, and there's no downside to too much protein unless it's replacing other nutritious food. So don't worry about it. You'll be fine with that. Just protein at every meal. Just a nice piece of protein at every meal. Your kids are golden, especially if they're drinking a little bit of milk here and there.
Yeah, I wouldn't get too hung up on the numbers. I wouldn't just focus on getting a good source.
Most kids are getting it, and unfortunately, they're just getting bad stuff with it. So they're not just going vertical; they're going horizontal. The average kid.
Okay, so Chris says the parent of the one that's 5'3", 250 wants to exercise. As myself, the trainer, I do as well, but size and weight matters. Of course it does, but you want to teach the child to love exercise. You don't want it to be a punishment. You want it to be something they enjoy. You want it to utilize and leverage their strengths. So find something they enjoy, make it empowering, and then what happens is once they start enjoying and seeing how strong they are and how they can be, then they're going to probably want to start improving their eating habits. It's kind of this inside out approach. That's what I would say, Neal.
Yeah.
Okay, Joshua asked, what age should a child start taking a kids MV? Go ahead, say it again, Neal.
Age 2. Age 2, they have their teeth. Age 2 to 4, you take 1. Age 4 to 11, you take 2. Age 12, you flip over to be active.
So his son is currently 15 months and he just ordered the kids.
Okay. Well, I mean, he's probably on. You could use it though. What you could do is grind it up and put it in milk. Yeah, you could do that. You could actually do that at this point.
Yeah, Danielle says it's like pulling teeth to get them to take the kids' vitamin.
You know, but I'll tell you something, Danielle. I know what you mean by that. Listen, I've done everything I can to mask it because we have those 19 vitamins and minerals that we know every kid's missing at least 5, 6, or 7, or 8 of those ones that are in there. And when I say missing, like really low on them, right? So by putting them all in one to make it easy for them, rather than 17 different formulas, that's the goal. But you can't really mask it. The thing with gummies, I would want to put everything we make in a gummy, but they don't work because they can't keep that matrix won't allow stability of the vitamins and minerals. You can't put more than 4 or 5 different ones in there, and they don't stay stable after about a week or 2. So they're useless. That's why you have all these problems with them. No one's figured that out. As soon as they figure it out, I'll be the first guy to put everything in a gummy because the kids will eat those, right? So you just got to figure it out. But go ahead, you can grind it up as we talked about. You can put it in a little bit of shake, put it there, and have them down it that way. But most kids do like it though. We did a pretty good job in the flavoring, I think.
Okay, Carlos in Los Angeles wants to know, he trains multiple training sessions, sports practices during the same day. Should there be creatine replenishment along with carbs?
Who's this now?
I mean, you don't need to. You don't need to,
no,
right? You want a fluid and carbohydrates like Gatorade.
About that. If you're at the age where you can use creatine, then once you've loaded it, all you need to do is take it once or twice a day and it stays loaded. It doesn't matter when you take it except one time, one scoop after a workout. Yeah, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. Carbs, you want to reload regularly and, your protein recovery, but not creatine.
Okay, Pete Guzman asks, is the discount for new users is still attached to our personal .fit account?
Yes, you're going to get 20% off. That coupon she gave you is 20% off whatever you're getting today, which means we're losing money.
Awesome. Chancey says fine. Yes, Chancey, you're breastfeeding for the first year. Okay, everybody's saying thank you. That's about it, Neal. We can wrap.
Okay.
You guys are awesome. Thank you for being here. And if you need any help, write to us, experts@dotfit.com, and we will be back next month for another master class. So you guys have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Everybody.
For those of you in the States.
Stay safe, and things are opening up. Love it. See you soon.